Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Crypto and Coffee podcast. As per usual, I'm your host, Giordano, followed by my two co-hosts, Cordell Tani and David Blackstone. On today's episode, episode 21, we have a very insightful topic as per usual. We're going again with another AI-related topic, open source versus closed source AI. All right, so just to start things off, right, most people don't necessarily are in the AI bubble. So Cordell, David, can, either of you explain in your own terms what is, closed source AI and what is an open source AI and what the difference is?
Well, I would just say at a very, let's just start with at a very high level differentiation. It's just really, who has control of the model and control of what's going on inside. So, the open source one, if you think of Llama, Mistral are two examples of that, it's like you pretty much have complete customization potential on all of the AI and all of the infrastructure. So in other words, you just, it's like a decentralized kind of AI model. So anyone out there in our Web3 crypto community, you appreciate the power of decentralized stuff like this. So, when you have it as open source, you have to pay for your own compute. So in other words, you're going to buy tokens or buy usage or whatever, but you have control over it. So you could customize it, but you have to do pretty much all the heavy lifting. Whereas a closed source, it's just pretty much, you're going on a platform. They're doing everything for you. You just go there and you pay your subscription. And, this way you don't have typically total control over the models or how you're setting it up. You're just pretty much on a platform and that's it. So that's how I would just describe it at a very top level. I mean, obviously, as you dive into the granularity, there's more nuances.
And what would you say is more beneficial to a developer? Like all of us here are developers, right? What would you say is more beneficial to all three of us?
Well, it really depends on the project and depends really on what you're doing, right? So, for the most part, I am fine with closed source AI. I think at most point, if you think about how much all of us do on Claude and things like that, just directly through the Claude desktop, Claude AI, that's closed AI. We don't have access to the source code. We can't, start changing it to do whatever we want to suit our purposes. But, at the same time, I do have some agentic AI stuff that I've created that just relies on pretty much more of an open source model, like DeepSeek. DeepSeek is DeepSeek open source, David? I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the Chinese models are open source.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that they're trying to do is, this is looking into it. Like they've not explicitly stated this, but they released AI models that are open source and pretty much almost as good as the other ones that are out, but at a fraction of the cost. So effectively, the more people know about those, the more likely it is that the AI bubble is going to pop. And currently, the U.S. economy is throwing a lot into AI, and the government.
So I've read.
So they are trying to effectively, this is basically economic warfare without explicitly stating that. So Trump has tariffs, they have economics. Well, they have trade, they have capitalism. So eventually, if you have two products that are very, very similar, then eventually the cheaper, more efficient model is going to win. For example, McDonald's versus basically every other burger place. While McDonald's was actually appealing to the low cost or the consumer that wanted things to be cheap and fast, they were doing well. When they tried to price their burgers at the same price as you would have from Red Lobster or something, the middle of the road places, they started to fall under. People stopped going. But currently, DeepSeek, Qwen, and the other Chinese models, which I'm pretty sure are open source, they are at roughly still a tenth of the price of things like Claude. And you can check them out over on huggingface.co. Like they're still there. And they're using those open source models to train off of things like Claude to be at roughly the same capability. The rest is just the harness.
Yeah, the rest is just the harness. So, yeah, so I've been using mostly some of the agentic systems that I create, I primarily use DeepSeek, but I don't necessarily say it's because I'm doing it because it is open source, right? I'm just doing it because, as David just described, it's the cheapest one for, especially for some of the stuff that I'm doing. I would be very careful about putting any very sensitive private information or something like that into the DeepSeek model. That I wouldn't do. But if it's just really to do some basic automation or routine tasks that I need the agents to do, then, like going through earnings transcripts and things like that for stocks, then yeah, it's it. But I mean, it really just comes down to like, what are you trying to accomplish, and do you need to get your hands on the code or make it open source? And at the same time, it's also just about having the control. So, with the open source, you have complete sovereignty over everything. You have sovereignty over the data, infinite customize, you can customize it as much as you want, and you're not locked into a single vendor, right? Those are really the main advantages of going the open source. So, you just download the model weights or whatever and run them locally on your own servers. So, whereas the closed source, right? It's plug and play, right? You just go onto a platform, you probably get crazy good performance and everything like that, and they're updated for you, so there's no maintenance that you have to do on your side. So it's like, you don't have to do any infrastructure if you start going the closed source. The problem is that, you're completely locked into a vendor, you have complete platform risk, and you're also at the mercy of whatever they're going to charge you for it. So, and don't forget downtime, right? I mean, I don't know if you guys have experienced this with, Claude has some outages here and there. And there's just some days when it's so sad when there's an outage and you're just sitting there like, I can't work because everything you were doing was using Claude. So all of a sudden you're just sitting there with your thumb up your butt, like, okay, what am I supposed to do? You've just become so dependent on the platform and everything that the second it goes down, you're like, I'm going to have to code for myself. I don't even know how to do that anymore. So.
Yeah, but
yeah, I tell everyone that those are great times to take breaks.
Yeah.
Same if you hit your cap. If you hit the cap on those 5-hour session windows, well, break, take a break. If you're doing that much coding, at that point, just go off, grab a coffee, take lunch, whatever you need. Like go watch a movie, do something, and then come back when the session refreshes. If they have an outage, well, you're probably going to get charged at a token premium anyway. You're probably going to burn through 50% off of one query. And they love to do stuff like that. So yeah, just take a break.
I didn't know that.
Switch over to Codex for a bit, and they would definitely not want to hear me say that, but yeah, Codex is basically as good, better in some ways, and you can switch over to that and be absolutely fine. I've done that, and I've done that with the Chinese models as well. There are multiple reasons to switch between them. That being one of them. I wouldn't be too worried about the data, because every company in America takes your data. Like ones that have absolutely nothing to do with data collection are taking your data, so you're basically like they had that one argument back in like the early 2000s of if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. Well, at this point, they've basically taken that and run with it. Every single company is taking every single metric that they can about you on every single thing that you do. Now, if I were to hire a spy to follow you around throughout the day and just write on a notepad everything that you were doing, that would be illegal. But they do it via the computer, and that's completely fine. And that's all of them. Now, here's the difference between America taking your data and China taking your data. America taking your data, you say anything that's against certain groups, you're going to be in trouble. You say anything about the IRS, and like I'm not just talking about the groups that people think that I'm talking about. Like you say something about the IRS and how you don't like to pay taxes, or you want taxes to be lower. and then just right off the bat, you're on that little list of potential extremists, and that is very literally anti-taxes is one of the things that they list on their list of potential extremists. The criteria for that's one of them, right there. So me on that list right now for just saying that, because we are on an American site. Now, China, they're not going to care about what you say so much. If they're not going to care about what you say, such as over in the West, they're going to have the same rules applied for different things. So we live under the same criteria. We live under the same rules. We live under different criteria. China, you don't say anything about the Chinese party because that affects their power. Over in the West, you don't say anything about these groups or these things. Taxes being one of them. They don't want you to convince people that we're probably paying a little bit too much if we're getting taxed on absolutely everything. Because you're taxed on your income, you're taxed on your car, like annually, you're taxed to pay for the road, you're taxed to you have the mandatory insurances that you need. You have to pay for the toll roads on top of that. You have to pay for like all these different things, and then you have to pay the sales tax on the gas. Like it's just at every single level you have a tax. But if you say anything about it, congratulations, you're an extremist.
Mm. I live in Quebec, right, which has like the highest. Sorry, I was like, I live in Quebec. We've got the highest taxes in North America. So I'm pretty sure me saying that we have very high taxes in Quebec and I don't want to pay them anymore. I'm sure there's a couple other million people that feel the exact same way. So I'm not really worried about our government coming after me for saying that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
Now, here's the thing that you might not have expected. Like, I hit a warning on Claude just the other day. And what did I hit it for? I was looking into some vampire lore, and they said, "Well, this seems like it could be going over biology," and it popped up a warning. I've never seen that on a Chinese model.
No, it's interesting because the human in the loop aspect behind all of these systems, right? At what point will your query trigger a flag that's going to have a human review it? So I've never actually had, anything pop up saying, hey, you're researching some forbidden topics here. But I know, but that's a really, other important aspect behind all of the AI models and stuff like that is at what point is the human in the loop and the oversight, right? So I know that Grok probably has, I don't even know if they have any oversight really, because apparently I think with Grok, you can say, pretty much ask whatever you want. I don't even know what kind of, I've never even used Grok. I don't know what that one is like when it comes down to the safety protocols and the human in the loop protocols. I don't know, have you guys tried Grok at all?
No, I've never.
No.
Not particularly, no.
Is there a reason why? I'm kind of curious, why, apparently the models are
speed. But overall, I prefer doing everything through the harness, just because I've got coming up on 2 decades of experience as a software engineer. So I do everything through the editor. Having a change history there that I can see so I can see exactly what it's done without having to read through the entire chat log. I can just go to the file and say, okay, here's what you changed, is very beneficial to me. For example, right now I'm writing a novel. And going through those chapters in the editor, so that way I can see, okay, here's what changed, here's what I like, here's what I don't like, run over that with analysis to see, okay, what's my writing style? How does that compare to other people? That's very, cool. Very beneficial to me. And I cannot do that with Grok. It's the harness that I need, not the AI itself.
Oh, interesting. Never even thought of that. Of the way you're doing that to check your writing style and stuff like that. And it does a good job analyzing it and saying, showing the differences of your writing style and what are you comparing yourself to other authors or other known publications, that kind of thing.
It's useful in as far as you tailor the prompt, as I found. It tries to go to what you're writing, not how you're writing. So I can focus on if you really, really tailor the prompt, then you can go towards things like, okay, the writing style, if you rewrite these sentences to be such as this, and then to pull out the core of the sentence, and then you try to rewrite that as plainly as possible. Examine the differences between that and how I've done it. then compare that to these other authors. And that's just with what I'm saying. You can see how complex the prompt is getting. Then it can do it. But up until that point, it's looking at what you've written, not how you've written it. So like it's very, very difficult at the how, not so much the what. Well, and that makes sense because that's a little bit more of a judgment call as opposed to just here's what is.
Cool. So here's my question then for you guys, right? Because, just the amount of spend, from the hyper, not just the hyperscalers, but in terms of like Anthropic, the companies providing the AI and the models, can open source actually compete with closed source? And that's really, I think, a more, a very interesting, like, I just don't see how the open source ones can compete with the likes of with Claude, OpenAI, and I just see them always going to be 6 months to a year ahead of where any open source models are, right? I mean, even if you were just to compare Anthropic to Meta, for example, like to me, Anthropic is so far ahead of it that I'm just, I'm wondering how the open source ones can compete.
Well, currently on artificialanalysis.ai, you have the intelligence of open source models such as, let's see, DeepSeek is the first one that I recognize. Minimax I've seen on Hugging Face, but I don't know if it's one that is open source or if they just trained against it. But DeepSeek is right there, 44 of 60 compared to Claude. Now that's 2/3 as good, which is for things like the absolute edge. That's going to be an issue. For things like a chatbot or the most code that you're going to be doing, like most people, whenever they use AI, they're using it to fast code an app, like do a clone of Spotify so you can connect to YouTube Music with your API key or something. They do stuff like that, very, very fast. They do things like a finance app for themselves, not something to release. That's going to be fine for that. Now, if you look over at cost per task, they're at 4 cents compared to Claude's 2.75 as a cost per task. That is far lower than what I just said of 1%. Well, I said, yeah, it's a little over 1%. It's like 5%. So like, yeah, it's very, very close to it's very, very close to absolute savings on that. But with the savings compared to what you're getting on intelligence, it absolutely beats Claude. So it really, really depends on what you need it for. If you need the harness, Claude has the best one. If you need the AI, DeepSeek is going to fulfill most users' tasks for absolutely everything. You have the people who are using AI for dating or therapists, and yes, there are people that are using it for dating. And oddly enough, it's not the men the way you'd think. It's more women who are jumping for that. We can dive into that if you need. But there are articles. You can find them. And I'm here I am waving my hands like Alex Jones. But yeah, you've got AI where you've got high intelligence, and it's high enough for anything that you're likely to use it for as an average user, and super low cost. If you're using it for a bleeding edge company, no, it's not going to work for you. But if you're using it to make the average stuff that the average user does, absolutely, it's not.
Wow. I never, it's because I again, for like DeepSeek, I just do it for some of my agentic systems, and it's just really because it's cheaper. That was really the main reason, right? Because with $2 loaded into my DeepSeek account, that's going to last me a couple of years. Whereas, what I need to do with Claude, I don't even know what the cost would be. It was like 3 to 4 times more expensive, I think, at that point. Anyways, but it's it's just coming back to the whole open source versus closed, AI. Just I don't even really use the open sources. So and that's me. I don't see how many other people are using the open source unless you really have the ability to manipulate it and build whatever you need to and make it more attractive than having a closed AI. So.
Yeah. So Cordell, I wanted to ask everyone here, right? I know Fable 5, they brought it back for like, let's say a week and plus like 8 days in total, right? And I think today at like 12 a.m., they're gonna just basically change the whole planning for it, where you're paying, I guess, I think per million tokens, if I remember correctly, right? Has any of you tried Fable 5 as yet?
Very briefly. I did it very briefly, mostly though because I'm terrified of the usage right now. I can't afford to hit my usage limits given how much I use Cloud for for almost all the work that I do, whether it's work for my clients, building new trading strategies. So I tried it very briefly, and I don't know if I'm at a point where I can say, wow, this thing is crazy. But what I've read about it and what I've read about other companies doing it, I know this was on Anthropic's site, that I think it was Stripe used Fable to migrate, I don't even know how many lines of code or everything on Ruby. They migrated, and I think it took them a couple of hours when they had a team of if they had to do it manually, it would have been a team of engineers that would take them 2 months. So I think that's the stat that I've seen that really, I was like, oh my God, that's just ridiculous. I mean, clearly when you start hearing about Mythos or Fable that they had to take it off because of what it can, the cybersecurity risk and everything, what did they found that there were some US government agencies, it found ways to hack US government agencies. I mean, it just gets kind of scary. But I haven't used it to the point where I can say, oh my God, like this thing's incredible, because what I'm using Opus for is, it's fine. It's more than fine. It's fantastic what Claude Code using Opus can do. Will it just be faster using Fable? Probably. I mean, obviously, but the quality of the work that comes out of Opus right now is so incredible. I'm kind of don't even know what to think if Fable could make that even better. So I haven't used it to that degree. It's just the stats that I've read about it are crazy. But the token usage, I know that they said, what was it, 50% off the token until today? Is it until the 12th? But I just can't afford to hit my usage limit. So I'm too scared of it, honestly. I'm just too scared of the token usage.
Okay, understandable. David, have you ever tried it within the last 8 days?
I have, but I wasn't too impressed by it. No, for everything that I'm doing with AI, Opus and Sonnet were the next 2 models down were good enough for me. For the absolute majority of the software engineering that I'm doing, those are enough, and that's going over multiple code bases at a time, multiple repos at a time to make sure that the solution is complete. This is stuff for work. And yeah, it's been more than enough for those cases. Now, maybe that's not the most complex thing, but sure, it's been enough for me. I've not seen too big of a jump from Fable. Now, according to artificial analysis, Fable is at the top. It beats out the other cloud models and such. On
what metrics?
Maybe if I dive into that specifically.
On which metrics? On which metrics do you see it?
On intelligence. That's their front page. Now I can scroll down the page a little bit.
Intelligence. I'm not sure I know what that means. I mean, is that just token? It's just output. It's token. Is it just token output per request that metric is? Like, because that's obvious to me that Fable is going to have an insane amount of output for each request.
They have benchmarks, and you can dive into them based off of the different things that the different pieces of information that they include. Like here, I could. Are you okay with me showing screen?
I don't see why not. I mean, we've never done it before, have we? Yeah. It's the first for everything. Yeah. So go.
Let's try that. All right. So let's go for window here and share.
Yeah.
Now that's going to be down here, a little bit down the page, but you can see here that once expanded, you have this go over their intelligence index a little bit. Now this is not the only place where they include information. As you can see here, we're very, very high up on the page, and that's not a source list below that. You can check a good bit of it, but they've got Fable at 60, Claude Opus at 56, Sonnet at 53. Those are very, very close values on the test that they're doing. I've not had too big of an issue with that. And here's why I don't believe. Here's why I didn't believe the issue about what came out with Fable at the time. Now I wasn't able to find it when I did the search, but at the time when I saw the article, I saw it as being written with AI tells, which had me thinking, what did the Department of Defense use Claude to put out their announcement about this? They were saying things like, "Oh yeah, Fable managed to hack into our system. That's not outputting this. That's intelligence, or that's reasoning through the system." Okay, well, negative comparisons like that, those are an AI tell. AI does that in basically every other sentence. So what that had me thinking was, okay, so used AI to make this announcement or something. Well, a few days later, what did we get? Well, we got another model that came out that was beating Fable on some metrics. Not ones that I've dived into on here, but like they did beat Claude on some metrics. I think that was a design model. But we've got GPT 5.5 here, or 5.6. Yeah, we've got 5.6 here. That's just 1 point under on the same metrics. Yeah, I don't see how Fable was this great. I think that it was either the U.S. government pushing back against Claude for not allowing them to do some things, or that was a marketing stunt by Claude themselves. Or with collaboration from the U.S. government. I don't know. I don't know the deals that are being made. I don't know anything along those lines. So all I can do is speculate. But like they were banned for like a week, and then the ban was lifted. And this is by Claude's statement that they were banned. So I'm not too sure about what was going on there, but I don't think that they were doing anything too impressive, because I haven't seen too big of a difference between this and the other models.
From what I've understand, what I've seen other developers do with their code base, they use Fable 5 to essentially like read the entire code base. I know other people use plugins like, Graphify, if you guys are familiar with stuff like that, where you can like, basically like a second brain. So basically, people use like Fable 5 to essentially read the entire file or the code base, and then from there they would use like Opus to actually code itself. Right, that's what I've seen people do over the past 8 days. I've seen people do it on Reel. I've seen people do it on TikTok, and I think for what it's worth, it kind of does save some of the token usage you might have as a developer. Like, you use Fable 5 to read it, and then you use a lower model Opus to actually code.
Interesting. I hadn't even thought of that. I mean, I've just figured, or the way that I see it, is that, look, you're going to use Fable. Like, if I needed to build a complete app, like a complete app, back end, front end, beginning to end, from scratch, yeah, I'd probably want to use Fable 5 for that compared to Opus, right? Just because of how much the output, how much faster it would get it done. So, I mean, that's pretty much how I see the usage. Like you said, auditing a massive amount of, of a massive code base, different interconnected, components and stuff like that. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's your use case for Fable. Otherwise, if you're just doing standard coding, writing, or just your standard Claude Code, you're most likely fine with the Opus, 4.8 set to max. You're going to be more than fine with that.
Yeah, because like you can always have like Fable build like the file and folder skeleton, the architecture, all that stuff, and then you just have like Opus go through the actual code itself.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, I guess I don't know when I'm going to get to the point where I think I'd have to see the usage cost for it to come down to get me a little bit more tempted to try it right now. Just because I don't know what to expect. The last thing I want to do is put in a request, try this, and the next thing I know, I've just blown through my 5 hours of usage, or worse, my weekly usage. And I never hit my usage limits. Like, I never hit them, and I use this thing pretty much nonstop for most of my day, and I have still yet to hit a usage limit. So I don't want to hit that usage limit.
Okay,
maybe I'll get to it one day.
You have the $100 plan, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I'm on the it's the max. So, but I don't know. It's in Canadian dollars. So I'm paying 160 Canadian dollars. So what is that, like 130, 140 US?
Yikes. Okay. And one thing I wanted to ask, like Claude just released its new dispatch function, right? Where you can basically
Yeah.
control your computer from your phone, right? So I know a lot of people have already like kind of tinkered with it a little bit, and people prior to that have been using a Telegram bot to essentially control the computer. Has
Yeah.
any of you tried it? Has any of you tried dispatch so far, David?
No. Dave,
No,
have you tried? I want to try this thing like crazy though now.
Yeah. Yeah, every request does like burn through your tokens a little bit, just letting you know.
Dave, have you tried it?
no, I keep AI rather limited to its capabilities for anything that I have it do. Uh, like for example, read and write over various things. Yeah, sure, read whatever you want. I'll keep it very limited for what it can write and where it can write to, though. Anything it outputs, I go over it. I make sure that it does what it needs to do, that it's doing it properly. I'm very limited on what I allow it to do.
Yeah.
But like grabbing information, sourcing information, going through it, parsing it, running an analysis, absolutely. I'll do that stuff all day. It's the writing that I have an issue with. So something like that where it can control the computer remotely, I'd be a little bit more averse to. But I have a developer who's been open to that, and he wanted to have that capability specifically. He wanted me to allow that for the organization, so that way he could work while away from the computer. So yeah, I enabled that, and he's been using it, and he's not had any issues. But it's not something that I would really be too tempted to use right now. Maybe after a few other people have gone through it, like give it a few months of other people testing it out, and then I might jump in. But up until that point, probably not.
Well, I mean, some of the use, like the reason why I'm so fascinated by it, first of all, I've been using Telegram bots for years. All right, for years. It's one of my main communication tools that I'll use to monitor some of my cloud systems or for my trading strategies. Right, so some trading strategies, back in the day, I used to experiment with it, controlling Binance trades and things like that. But most of that's blocked now. But like I have, let's say, some stuff running for clients, I've got websites or, dashboards for their trading models that they use to monitor their, how their strategies are doing in real time. If any of this breaks, let's say if there's something that fails, an update fails, I get notified on Telegram, or every morning I get a report on Telegram saying, these were the updates that the code, into the database. It's just stuff all running in the background to make sure the data is always updated. And I get reports via Telegram, and I love it. So one of the things that I find could be very useful with this is very often I'm running something on Claude Code and then I got to leave. All right, I have to leave. And I don't want to just let it, I like to finish the task. And then, what's going to happen is you're going to get the request to allow once or always allow, those constant permission requests, which drive me nuts, by the way. That's the one thing I have to learn how to control more, is to not have it ask me for permission every 2 seconds to do certain things. So, but if I'm able then to leave and I can still access Claude Code from my phone and do all this so it can still execute the task, that would be incredibly useful. The problem is no matter where I am now, it's just like I'm going to be so distracted because it's like I'm going to be constantly trying to multitask. So what, I'm going to be out for lunch with my family and I'm still going to be on my phone every 2 seconds executing commands just so that I could code and get my stuff built. So, I'm fascinated by it. I think that's a great use case for me, just being able to, keep things running, even if I have to get out of my house. But I also think the danger of it is you're just going to be completely tied to your desktop no matter where you are. And I think we already have enough problems, unplugging or going off the grid for a little bit. So it's, that's the one thing that terrifies me. It's keeping me on the grid more and more.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to take breaks.
I think in Visual Studio, the Claude Code extension, the actual terminal you can type in, you can actually edit to, let's say, you just continue writing code without permission in the new update when they release Dispatch.
That's But that's scary at the same time,
That's true.
because like as David was saying, he wants to review the output. Like, just to, the last thing I'm going to do right now is just say, here's carte blanche, do whatever you need to do to get this project done.
Mhm.
From my experience, I mean, so often, when you're doing these things that, it's not just that it's not even that it makes mistakes. In fact, I found if anything, it's making fewer and fewer mistakes at the moment. Like it's very rare that I'm catching certain mistakes. The issue that I find is when it misinterprets your request or it decides to get very creative and add things that you did not ask for. Or just overcomplicating. I find it could also overcomplicate things. If you want to, especially if you come up with there's a bug or there's a problem inside what you're doing and then it comes up with a solution. You're like, well, why wouldn't you just do this? And then it says, oh yeah, that's a lot cleaner than what I was going to do. Like, well, okay. So that's why I would be very nervous just to say, press a button, leave, do whatever you need to, especially if it has to start writing files to your computer or overwriting stuff, then I'd get nervous.
Yeah, that's
It's
true.
just, it's like,
yeah, it's only as good as the prompt, really.
Yeah, it is only as good as the prompt. But even with the prompt, there's always risks, right? And that's part of the issue, is that especially when you're dealing with client data or you're working on behalf of clients, you have to have a risk management system in place too, right? It's like, everything has to be backed up. You can't afford to make these kind of mistakes. I mean, we all make mistakes.
Yeah.
And you got to be careful.
Yeah, I do have somewhat of a solution. I do it. So I have this vibe coded app, and what I essentially do is that I give Claude Code what I want to do in phases. So like after each phase, I can essentially look over it. So after each phase, it essentially writes down a markdown file, and I can just look over it and basically edit each one going forward. So it's a lot easier and a lot, I guess, less risky, but the risk is still there as per usual, but it's a lot less risky, and I can keep track of what's going on and what's been edited.
It's interesting because like I've never read so much Markdown in my life as I have in the past couple of months. Like, because Claude is just obsessed with Markdown files. But I understand why. It's because it takes a little bit more, because then you need the docx skill and everything like that to start doing.
Yeah.
Although I prefer it in Word. But I mean, like, when we think about the danger. So if you're building a project, right? So my normal process is, let's say I need to build a portfolio optimization kind of program, just something that you put your inputs in and tells you what your optimal portfolio is. It's something that I do a lot for some of my clients. And if I have to build something from scratch, so the first thing I'll do is I go to Claude. First thing we're going to do is we're going to build an outline. We're going to brainstorm. This is what I want the project to look like. Let's start thinking of all the different issues or problems that are going to come up. And then the first thing I do before we get to any coding or anything, and I usually do this on Claude Desktop AI before I'll move over to Claude Code. The ultimate goal here is let's design the project and give everything that Claude Code, then we'll hand it off to Claude Code for execution and to build it.
Yeah.
So I'll spend most of my time just building this outline and just doing project design and what we, and especially if I have to build an interface or get a Streamlit app going with it, then I spend most of my time just doing that. And then I'll just hand it off to Claude Code. And then you're just more monitoring the progress as it goes. So, and one thing I always do is it's documentation, because, the biggest danger, I think, from all of this, especially for us, because we want to do things quickly and we want it done well, of course. But if you're working on 10, 15 different projects and you're not doing any of the coding, it's all being, you're not going to remember what's going on. You're never going to remember exactly how something was done. What's the structure? What's the project structure? So as part of everything I do, there's a requirement for complete documentation at every step. What did you do? What files? It's a total audit log that I make Claude keep so that I can see what happened at every single step. So that if I don't remember something, I'll have a source of truth, and that's another term that Claude loves to use, the source of truth. And this way, like documentation, you have to make sure that you've got your documentation going, not just at the end, but as you go, so that it maintains an audit log of everything that it did, and have it commit and push often. So that way you have it all, you can roll back or something like that. So that's just been, it's just the way I normally work with Claude Code and things like that with all of it. But documentation is so important. And there is no excuse to not have everything documented at every stage of a project.
Yeah, completely agree. And what about using, AI agents just to help you out with that? What are your thoughts on that, Cordell?
Love it. I mean, it really depends. I mean, I find the biggest issue, the biggest roadblock for me with agentic AI, it's just Python dependency hell. That's
Yeah.
really all it is. And I mean, look, I love Python, but it's a huge, like the dependency issues are a big problem. So I'm only going to create an agent now. And plus, look, I have a lot of stuff that I just reuse, right? I'll use a lot of reused code and stuff like that. And it's just, but to create time for every new agentic project and then deal with the dependency problems, it's a huge pain. That's like, that to me is what the turnoff is right now, is just dealing with Python dependencies. But that's, of course, if you're building and coding the agents yourself. I mean, there's plenty of services out there where you could have I could have Claude build the agents and things like that, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to have an issue with your dependencies in the environment in Python. It just drives me nuts.
I can help with that. When writing in Python or anything with dependencies, anything with version dependencies, the tendency is to keep them open-ended, and that's definitely what the AI is going to do. But if you pin it to a specific version, then you can check against that and upgrade when you need to, as opposed to just letting it auto-update to the latest thing, which will probably break the project.
I agree, which is what I do, right? Especially if I'm working in Colab, if I start in Colab. And quite honestly, I start almost everything I do now in Colab until I've got proof of concept. And, then I'll go over to PyCharm and Claude Code and do it full, because it's just setting up the environment, it takes time, right? And Colab, it can get stuff done quickly in Colab, and Claude Code could write the notebook for you. But no, I 100% agree. I pin the versions, but that still is not a guarantee. You still have to figure out which versions to pin. And then one update breaks the entire dependency. So, but yeah, I know that's exactly what I do. I mean, if I'm using LangChain, I don't even remember, though I'll have to check it out. But, so between LangChain and have you ever tried Crew AI?
No.
Okay, so Crew AI, it's supposed to really do the agentic AI. It's supposed to be like the best, easiest way to create your agents. So because it, creates the LangGraph and LangChain, you have to create each node one at a time, so you have to keep adding the layers. Crew AI is supposed to do it for you, but I never got it to work. So I did do an agentic AI course for finance a couple of years ago, and one of the assignments we were told to use Crew AI, and I think only one person in the whole cohort was able to actually get it working. So apparently Crew AI is an awesome way to build the agents, but I just had so many problems with the dependencies and getting it set up. And LangChain, yeah, it's easier for you. It does it for you in terms of creating all the nodes and the agents. But LangChain is the one that worked for me. But I had to pin versions of that. You have to find the right version of the model that you're going to use too. So you got to pin the version of DeepSeek. You got to pin the version of LangChain. There's a lot of different moving parts to it. And, it does take time. It does take time.
One of the things I've seen over the past, I think, 3 months is people buying one of those Mac minis. I think it's like those $800 small boxes, if you know what I'm talking about. And I've seen people run like a whole 5 AI or AI agents on it, just having it for their company. So one AI would essentially act as the CTO. It reads code, it basically finds anything that's wrong with it, and then you probably would have a next agent do like the development, or probably 2 other agents doing development, and then the crazy thing is they would have like other agents, one doing marketing and one doing operations, as in like, you know, answering emails and basically acting as a secretary, right? And the
Yeah.
crazy thing about it is it's like it's startup cost for it is just probably like $800, $900, and then this, I guess, the cloud subscription fee on a monthly basis. And it's just kind of insane if you really think about it for like any person that's really doing like a vibe coded startup or just building a basic app.
It's a great idea. I mean, it's almost as if that's what people were using a Raspberry Pi for 15 years ago, right? If any of you guys were ever using a Raspberry Pi, I love that thing. So, I mean, I found so many creative ways to use a Raspberry Pi, you know, and I can absolutely see using one of these mini MacBooks to do, you know, just keep your agents running. It makes perfect sense, actually. It's like a nice little autonomous little separated system that you've got running there. And yeah, no, I love that idea. I mean, I've never been a Mac person though, so I don't know what it would take for me to learn how to use a Mac and get it going. I know most people are Mac people and nowadays, but not me. So, but no, I love that idea. It's because you can, you know, I mean, because I think like for me, the biggest issue that I have, right, and it's not productivity, it's organization. It's, you know, you have, and I don't believe in to-do lists. I think, like, you know, the problem with a to-do list is that you'll never knock everything off, and it's there. You might end up starting with the easiest items, you know, and especially if it's like your most productive times of the day, you should probably do your heavy lifting tasks. So, you know, I use Trello. I'm not sure if you guys use any kind of project management system or something like that. So mine is Trello. You know, I have all the boards, and this is, but to get all of the information in there, it takes time. So one of the main things that I'm sure I can do this, and I know that Trello has built-in AI also, is I would love to have an easier way for me to add all of the information to the correct boards. This is where I really wish I was on the Star Trek Enterprise and I could just say, computer, add this to my, you know, like I want to get to that point where we have, you know, voice command agents that could take care of all of my organization and my project management task. That would be huge for me.
Actually,
you
almost there.
got something for that.
Yeah. So this is I'm working with this one company called actually, why am I forgetting the name of it? Wow. That's great.
I'll edit that part out so that you know.
iWealthX. I'm working with this company called iWealthX, and the CEO of that company, he's been running around checking out a lot of different areas to help out the ASEAN region. One of the things that he asked me for was a system that he could use to grade and escalate the efforts of various companies with regards to AI. So basically, we took the same thing that I did for CyberFortress and just applied it there. Now, with the things that I did, one of the areas outside of development. Now, development, yeah, it escalated. It went great. That's the usual 3 to 5x that you get. We scaled up that. We even went a little bit farther than that. But that's because we had a lot of room to grow. We had a lot of things that I had to put in for processes, and I basically built their software engineering side. But on the management side, and this is where we get into that stuff, I applied it to there as well, because there was so much to do. Going through it with AI really helped. Now, what I did for this was I connected to various places like Jira, Granola, which you probably saw with icon down there. I use that for work. Jira, Granola, the Google Calendar. We connected it to Slack as well. Another one that you probably saw the icon for. And I grab information from all of these places. And every single morning, what I have it do is I just ask it, get my to-dos. And it says, it has a very specific skill there that I wrote up that basically just a task file. Here's how you do this. Every time I ask for this, here's how you do this. Here's where you go. Here's what you grab. And here's how you make sure that you've got everything. And so I have it go to all those different places, grab all the information, collect anything that's not done or anything that's a new ask, and compile it out for me. I keep a daily tasks, a full task list, and a completed task list. So, which here's the benefit of that one. Anytime anyone asks me what I was doing for any given stretch of period, I can tell them. I can just list it right off. And anything that I need to come back to, I can grab it right there. And for every single task, I have a detailed directory with the information needed for it that is called to from that task file. So every single one of these files is a reference to those directories, and then I can go through as needed. So I can pull up every task that I need to do. I can pull up the latest context for it, all the information that I need to get up to speed on it, and I can just pick up from where I left off on that. Any single time I need. If it's an email, if it's from a meeting, if it's in Slack and just some random chat that I would have otherwise have lost, I can grab every single one of those. And with the latest addition to VS Code, they added a microphone there. And I'm sure we don't have audio output, but audio input is fine. And I'm going to just read through it faster than what it would tell me anyway.
Yeah, I could use stuff like that. That would be very beneficial. You know, I even started, I tried using the Google Studio and the flows. Have you guys seen this capability in Workspace? So just for example, right, one thing that drives me nuts is I'm sure most people, especially when you're a small business. And, always, what did I just do? Sorry. So I can't stand having, I have to get all my invoices. I get emailed invoices all the time. I have to save them somewhere because I have, I share my folders with my accountant, so he has access to everything. It didn't work very well. So I tried to set up a flow to read all of my emails, and if it identified an invoice, to save the attachment to a specific folder. Didn't work. I'm looking at it right now. It says there's one issue with your flow, and I'm like, great. So I gave up on it. But, the more and more that I see some of these, agents built into Google, yeah, I mean, I just wish they would get it to work properly. But the potential here, some of this stuff is like, is incredible. And I have to say, like, even though with Claude, now that I have Claude also in my Word and Excel and PowerPoint, I think we could all admit that I think Microsoft at this point has admitted that Copilot is a complete failure. If they're letting the Claude add-in have access to 365, I think we could all say that Copilot's been a huge failure. I just, I'd love to see the Google ones being built into Workspace being a little bit working smoother and a little bit better because, it's when it comes down to productivity admin, that's always the big gains for me. And I think that's true for most people. It's a low-hanging fruit. It's something that we all spend a lot of time on. It takes us away from our revenue-generating activities, right? I mean, that's always been the one thing you want to do is spend more time on your revenue-generating activities, which means getting rid of your admin and some of your other stuff. But I haven't seen a lot of these agentic elements built into these systems being adequate. So if you have something that could communicate with my email and directly through Trello and probably my Google Drive as well, yeah, that would be hugely, hugely beneficial. And I'm sure I could create this given the time. I'm sure look, nowadays we can create anything we want, it's a time factor. It's a time factor.
You can connect to all of those through Claude's connectors. Now they have.
I'm sure you could.
Service.
Yeah.
All you do is just go into the connectors and you can connect to all of those. Now Trello, I'm not too sure. I know it can connect to Jira, and I know it can connect to Jira, Google Drive, Google Calendar, and your email. With regards to email, it's not going to be able to grab the attachments. With regards to Drive, it's not going to be able to see the shared directories. But you can create a Python script that can do those, especially if you include your log, and then all you have to do is have Claude call to the Python file, run it, and then have it grab all that stuff. Like tell it to like provide the title or the code that's generated to route to the email to the file, and then the output directory, and then that's it. It just runs that file every time. It's fun.
No, you're right.
You can do it with Python because Python can basically do anything, like with all the different libraries that it has. So I'm sure that they have some library somewhere that can handle it. But
found it already.
Most of the way there.
I found it already. There is a Claude connector using the MCP for Trello. So,
Yeah.
you know, and there's like of course, there's a YouTube video right here. This is something that I'm going to try and experiment with this week, because that would be so beneficial to me to keep me organized and get all of my stuff like through my emails and directly into Trello. Or, you know, that's huge. The one thing I don't like, though, is because a lot of the times I tell you have to use Zapier, right, as part of it. And Zapier is a fortune. So like that you have to pay for. And, you know,
Yeah.
I don't want, I don't want to pay for it.
Actually, Cordell, there's actually a GitHub repo. I'm not sure if any of you guys have ever watched Iron Man or the Avengers. Do you know about Jarvis from like, you know, how Tony Stark's like AI assistant Jarvis?
It sounds familiar. I was never a big I was not into the Avengers movies, sorry.
David, you know what I'm talking about, right?
I do.
Okay, so there's this GitHub repo, right? It's basically an open source repo, and it basically it's kind of like an AI assistant for your entire desktop, right? The only thing is that you just have to create like a dashboard for it or UI for it, which you can just do easy in like, you know, Claude Code or wherever. And then basically you just give it whatever APIs. And one of the things that I've seen it do is that, you know, someone has walked up to their computer, they've clapped it, and they're like, you know, daddy's home. And it pull up every single thing that they need to do for the day, right? So they say, for instance, they have this app, it show them the MRR, it show them what tasks need to be done, it show them what emails Jarvis answered, all that stuff. I can send you guys the repo a little bit later after the episode recording.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in that. I would love to see that. You know, I got to find the time to do this. Yeah.
Here's
It's
the
just
one problem I'd have with that.
like,
Sorry?
Here's the one problem I'd have with that.
Yeah.
From time to time, I get questions from other people at my workplace asking to show off what I'm working with AI on, so that way they can apply it to theirs. If I go on call and type in "Daddy's home," that is going to be so awkward for the call.
yeah, you might want to find another I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's basically like voice recognition, right? So when it hears your voice, it'll just pull up whatever. Be like, okay, welcome back, sir, and it'll just pull up whatever is needed for today's session. I'll send you guys the GitHub repo. It's very interesting, actually.
Yeah, that could be good.
Yeah, I'm curious. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, you know, I just think, you know, maybe we should wrap it up. We're probably going on a bit too long today. I just think, you know, just like, look, I'm a huge believer in agentic AI. I think we all are. And just the potential of this stuff, you know, will it take out jobs? Who knows? Or probably, but I think the jobs, everything will just shift. It's just, we're just so in the early innings of this stuff. And, you know, it's only going to get crazier and crazier. And to me, yeah, right now, I think the holy grail for right now is to get more voice activation into it. If we can get the voice activated agents and stuff like going, we're one step closer to being in our Star Trek age. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, Cordell, if you do the ending for this episode, that'd be great.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. This has been episode 21 of the Crypto and Coffee podcast, where we decided to dive a lot more into agentic AI and, well, pretty much see where the conversation would take us. Thank you very much, everyone. We will be back with episode 22 very shortly. Thank you to our host, to all the hosts here, Gio, David. We love you guys. Thank you for listening.
Yep. See you guys.